Sienna Brooks had never believed in fate. As a molecular biologist specializing in genetic research, she trusted in science, in measurable outcomes, in data that could be replicated and proven. But on a cool evening in late September, standing in the grand ballroom of the Constellation Hotel, she began to question everything she thought she knew about chance and destiny. The charity gala was not her usual scene. Sienna preferred the quiet solitude of her laboratory, the gentle hum of equipment, the satisfaction of watching cells divide under her microscope. But her colleague had insisted, claiming the event would be excellent for networking and securing funding for their research. So Sienna had reluctantly traded her lab coat for an emerald green gown that hugged her curves in ways that made her self-conscious, pulled her auburn hair into an elegant updo, and forced herself to smile at strangers who discussed things she found infinitely less interesting than her work. She was standing near the bar, nursing a glass of champagne and contemplating an early escape, when she felt it. A presence. A shift in the air that made the hair on her arms stand up. Sienna turned, and her breath caught in her throat. Damian Sterling stood 6 feet away, but it felt like he was standing right beside her. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his custom tuxedo perfectly. His hair was dark as midnight, styled with casual elegance that suggested he had run his hands through it more than once that evening. But it was his eyes that captured her completely. They were storm gray, intense, and penetrating. And when they locked onto hers, Sienna felt like she was the only person in the entire crowded ballroom. He moved toward her with the confident grace of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. Every eye in the room seemed to track his progress. Women looking with obvious interest, men with a mixture of envy and respect. But Damian looked only at Sienna. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," he said, when he reached her, his voice, deep and smooth, touched with amusement. Sienna blinked, surprised by his directness. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone else who feels the same way," he smiled, and it transformed his entire face from intimidating to absolutely devastating. "I'm Damian Sterling. I know who you are," Sienna said, then immediately wished she could take it back. She sounded like a starstruck fan. "I mean, your company has been in the news. The work you're doing with artificial intelligence and medical diagnostics is remarkable." Well, Damian's eyebrows rose slightly. "You actually know about my work? Most people at these events only know the dollar signs attached to my name." "I'm a scientist," Sienna said, relaxing slightly. "Sienna Brooks. I specialize in genetic research at the Institute. Your AI program for early cancer detection could revolutionize how we approach treatment protocols." Something flickered in Damian's eyes. Interest, respect, and something else that made Sienna's pulse quicken. "Dr. Brooks," he said, and the way he said her name sent shivers down her spine. "Now I'm the one who's impressed. Your paper on CRISPR applications for hereditary diseases was brilliant. I've been following your research." Sienna felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You've read my work? Every publication you've released in the last 3 years." Damian moved closer, and Sienna caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her head spin. "I actually came to this tedious event hoping to meet you. Your colleague mentioned you might be here. You came to meet me?" Sienna's heart was racing now, and it had nothing to do with professional networking. "From the moment I saw your presentation at the Medical Innovation Conference last year, I've wanted to know the woman behind the research." Damian's gaze dropped briefly to her lips before returning to her eyes. "But I have to admit, I didn't expect you to be so beautiful." Sienna should have been offended by the comment, should have given him a sharp response about judging women on appearance rather than intellect. But the way he looked at her made it clear he appreciated both. And the butterflies in her stomach were making it hard to think clearly. "That's quite a line," she managed. "It's not a line if it's true." Damian held out his hand. "Dance with me?" Sienna hesitated. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was dangerous. Men like Damian Sterling didn't pursue women like her without ulterior motives. He was wealthy beyond measure, powerful, connected to everyone who mattered. She was a scientist who spent most of her time with Petri dishes and research papers, but when she looked into those gray eyes, logic seemed less important than the inexplicable pull she felt toward him. She placed her hand in his, and the moment their skin touched, electricity shot through her entire body. Damien's fingers closed around hers, warm and strong, and he led her onto the dance floor. His hand settled on her waist, pulling her closer than was strictly proper. Sienna's free hand rested on his shoulder, and she could feel the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric. They moved together with surprising ease, as if they had danced together 1,000 times before. "Tell me something real," Damien said softly, his breath warm against her ear. "Something you don't tell people at these events." Sienna looked up at him, surprised again by his directness. Most men wanted to talk about themselves. "I hate small talk," she admitted. "I'd rather discuss the ethical implications of gene editing or debate the future of personalized medicine than pretend to care about stock portfolios and vacation homes." Damien laughed, a genuine sound that made her smile. "Finally, someone who speaks my language. I built my company because I watched my father die from a disease that might have been caught earlier with better diagnostic tools. Every algorithm I develop, every program I fund, it's all to make sure other families don't go through what mine did." There was pain in his voice, old, but still present, and Sienna felt her heart soften. "I understand," she said quietly. "I became a geneticist because my younger brother was born with a rare genetic disorder. Watching him struggle, watching my parents feel helpless, it made me want to fix things. To make sure other children don't have to suffer." "Is your brother okay now?" Damien asked gently. "He died when he was 12, Sienna said, and was surprised to find tears pricking her eyes. She rarely talked about this, but his life, however short, mattered. "And if my research can help even one child live longer, live better, then everything I've sacrificed is worth it." Damien stopped dancing. Right there in the middle of the floor, with couples swirling around them, he stopped and looked at her with an intensity that took her breath away. "You're extraordinary," he said simply, before Sienna could respond, before she could process the way her heart was hammering in her chest. Damien leaned down and kissed her. It was soft at first, questioning, giving her the chance to pull away. But Sienna didn't pull away. Instead, she rose on her toes, pressing closer, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair as she kissed him back with a passion that shocked them both. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the world around them seemed to have fallen away. There was only Damien, only the way he looked at her like she was something precious and rare. "Come with me," he said, his voice rough with desire and something deeper. "Let's get out of here. I want to talk to you somewhere without all these people. Somewhere I can actually hear myself think." Sienna knew she should say no, knew that leaving with the man she had just met, no matter how compelling he was, violated every rule of caution she had ever set for herself. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw not just desire, but genuine connection. She saw possibility. "Yes," she whispered, and with that single word, her carefully ordered world began to transform into something unexpected and beautiful. They left the gala together, Damien's hand warm and sure at the small of Sienna's back as they walked through the hotel lobby. The doorman called for Damien's car, and within moments, a sleek black vehicle pulled up to the curb. Damien opened the door for her, a gesture that felt both old-fashioned and perfectly natural. "Where are we going?" Sienna asked as they pulled into the night traffic. "There's a place I know," Damien said, his hand finding hers in the darkness of the back seat. "A rooftop garden that overlooks the city. It's private, quiet. We can actually talk." Sienna nodded, acutely aware of his thumb stroking gentle circles on the back of her hand. The simple touch sent waves of warmth through her body, and she found herself leaning slightly toward him, drawn by a magnetism she couldn't explain. The rooftop garden was everything Damien had promised. Strings of soft lights hung between carefully manicured trees, and the view of the city skyline was breathtaking. But Sienna barely noticed the scenery. Her attention was focused entirely on the man standing beside her. "This is beautiful," she said, walking to the edge where a low wall overlooked the glittering city below. Damien came to stand behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. I come here when I need to think, he said. When the world gets too loud and I need to remember what matters. And what matters? Sienna asked, turning to face him. Truth. Damien said simply. Connection. Finding someone who sees past the surface to something real. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The way you do. Sienna's breath caught. You don't know me. We just met. I know enough, Damien said. I know you're brilliant. I know you're passionate about your work. I know you've experienced loss and turned it into purpose. I know that when you kissed me back there on that dance floor, it felt like coming home. That's crazy, Sienna whispered. But she didn't pull away when he stepped closer. Damien agreed. But sometimes the best things are crazy. His hands came up to frame her face, gentle but possessive. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me I'm alone in this, and I'll take you home right now. No pressure, no expectations. Sienna looked into his eyes and saw raw honesty. This powerful, wealthy man was being vulnerable with her, offering her the choice. And in that moment, she knew she couldn't lie to him or to herself. I feel it, she admitted. It terrifies me, but I feel it. Damien's smile was slow and devastating. Good, he said, and kissed her again. This kiss was different from the one at the gala. It was deeper, more urgent, filled with the promise of what could be. Sienna's hands fisted in his jacket, pulling him closer as his arms wrapped around her waist. They kissed until they were both breathless, until the city lights blurred around them and nothing existed except the two of them. I want you, Damien said against her lips, his voice rough. But I need you to be sure. I need you to want this too. Sienna pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. She should be cautious. She should take things slow. But standing here in his arms, feeling more alive than she had in years, slow seemed like a waste of precious time. I want this, she said. I want you. Damien's penthouse was a 15-minute drive from the rooftop garden, but it felt like hours. In the car, they couldn't keep their hands off each other, stealing kisses at every red light, fingers intertwined, hearts racing with anticipation. The penthouse was stunning, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern design, but Sienna barely registered the details. Damien led her through the living room to his bedroom, where enormous windows overlooked the city skyline. Are you nervous? Damien asked, turning to face her. Yes, Sienna admitted, but not in a bad way. Damien smiled and pulled her close. We go at your pace, he said. Whatever you want, whatever you need. This is about us, together. The tenderness in his voice nearly undid her. Sienna reached up and kissed him, pouring everything she felt into that kiss. Damien responded with equal passion, his hands moving to the zipper of her dress. He undressed her slowly, reverently, pausing to kiss each new inch of skin, he revealed. When her dress pulled at her feet, Sienna stood before him in just her lace undergarments, and the way he looked at her made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. Perfect, he breathed. You're absolutely perfect. Sienna reached for his jacket, her fingers trembling slightly as she pushed it off his shoulders. Damien helped her with his tie, his shirt, until they stood facing each other, with nothing between them but desire and possibility. He lifted her easily, carrying her to the bed, where he laid her down with infinite care. His body covered hers, skin against skin, and Sienna gasped at the sensation. Every nerve ending seemed to come alive under his touch. Damien took his time, exploring her body with hands and lips, discovering what made her sigh, what made her arch against him. He was patient and thorough, bringing her pleasure with a skill that spoke of experience, but also of genuine care for her enjoyment. When they finally came together, it was intense and intimate all at once. Sienna had been with men before, but never like this. Never with someone who seemed to see into her soul, who moved with her as if they had been created for this exact moment. Look at me, Damien said, his voice strained with the effort of maintaining control. I want to see you. Sienna opened her eyes and found his gaze locked on her. The connection was almost overwhelming, physical and emotional all tangled together until she couldn't separate one from the other. When she finally shattered in his arms, Crying out his name, Damien followed her over the edge, holding her close as they rode out the waves of pleasure together. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, both breathless and slightly dazed. Damien pulled her against his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "That was incredible," he said softly. "You're incredible." Sienna tilted her head to look at him. "I've never done anything like this before," she admitted. "Going home with someone I just met. I'm not that kind of person." "Neither am I," Damien said. "But you're not just someone. You're different, special. You can't know that after one night," Sienna protested. Though part of her desperately wanted to believe him, Damien shifted so he was looking down at her, his expression serious. "I can know that you make me feel things I've never felt before. I can know that talking to you is effortless. I can know that holding you feels right in a way nothing else ever has." He brushed his lips against her forehead. "I want to see you again. Tomorrow, the next day, every day. So you'll let me." Sienna's heart raced. "That's moving fast." "Life is short," Damien said. "My father died at 45. My mother at 50. I learned early not to waste time on things that don't matter, and to hold tight to things that do." "You matter, Sienna. I don't know why or how, but you do." Tears pricked Sienna's eyes. "I'm scared," she whispered. "This feels too good. Too perfect. Like it can't possibly last." "Then let's prove that fear wrong," Damien said. Together, they made love again, slower this time, savoring every touch and kiss. It was tender and passionate, a physical conversation about trust and vulnerability, and the courage it takes to open your heart to another person. As dawn began to lighten the sky outside the windows, they finally fell asleep, wrapped in each other's arms. Sienna's last conscious thought was that somehow, impossibly, she had found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows, and Damien was watching her, a soft smile on his face. "Good morning, beautiful," he said. "Good morning," Sienna replied, suddenly shy. In the light of day, what they had done seemed both wonderful and terrifying. Damien seemed to sense her uncertainty. He pulled her close, tucking her head under his chin. "Hey," he said gently, "no regrets. What we shared last night was real and beautiful. Don't second guess it." "I'm not used to this," Sienna admitted. "I'm not good at relationships. I spend so much time on my work that I've never made room for anything else." "Then maybe it's time to make room," Damien suggested. "Not instead of your work, but alongside it." "I understand dedication, Sienna. I built my company from nothing. But I also understand that success means nothing if you have no one to share it with." Sienna looked up at him. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we try this." "Really? Try. No games. No keeping each other at arm's length. Let's see what happens when two people who are usually too busy for relationships make time for each other." "That's a risk," Sienna said. "The best things always are," Damien replied. He kissed her softly. "But I think you're worth the risk. And I hope you think I am too." Sienna studied his face, seeing sincerity in every line. She thought about her life, about the endless hours in the lab, the lonely nights, the feeling that something was missing even when her research was going well. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's try." Damien's smile was radiant. Yeah, Sienna confirmed, and kissed him to seal the promise. They spent the rest of the morning in bed, talking and laughing and making love again. Damien ordered breakfast, and they ate it wearing his shirts, feeding each other bites of fruit and stealing kisses between conversation. "I have to go into the office this afternoon," Damien said, with obvious regret. "But have dinner with me tonight. A real date." "I'd like that," Sienna said. That evening, Damien took her to an intimate restaurant, where they sat in a private corner and talked for hours. He told her about building his company, about the failures that preceded success, about his vision for the future. Sienna shared her dreams for her research, the breakthroughs she was chasing, the lives she hoped to save. "You're going to change the world," Damien said, taking her hand across the table. "So are you," Sienna replied. And in that moment, both believed they might just change each other's worlds too. The weeks that followed were a blur of happiness and discovery. Damien and Sienna fell into a rhythm that felt both new and somehow ancient, as if they had been doing this for years, instead of weeks. They met for breakfast when their schedules allowed, stole lunch hours together, and spent almost every evening wrapped in each other's arms. Sienna found herself opening up in ways she never had before. She told Damien about her childhood, about her brother's illness and death, about the guilt she sometimes felt for surviving when he hadn't. Damien listened without judgment, holding her when the memories became too painful, understanding in a way only someone who had also lost people too young could understand. In turn, Damien shared his own vulnerabilities. He told her about the loneliness of building an empire, about past relationships that had been based on his wealth rather than who he was as a person. He admitted that he had almost given up on finding someone who could see past the money to the man beneath. "You see me," he told her one night as they lay in his bed, the city lights twinkling outside. "Really? See me? Do you know how rare that is?" "You see me too," Sienna replied, tracing patterns on his chest. "Most people think I'm married to my work. They don't understand that I can be both a dedicated scientist and a woman who wants love and connection." "I understand," Damien said, "because I'm the same way. My work matters to me. It's part of who I am. But so are you. You're becoming the most important part." 2 months into their relationship, Sienna finally introduced Damien to her colleagues at the institute. She had been nervous about mixing her professional and personal lives, but Damien charmed everyone with his genuine interest in their research and his respect for their work. "He's wonderful," her research partner, Dr. Rachel Winters, said after Damien left. "And the way he looks at you, Sienna, like you hung the moon. Don't let that one get away." "I don't plan to," Sienna said, smiling. But life had a way of testing even the strongest connections. 3 months into their relationship, Damien's company faced a crisis. A rival corporation launched a smear campaign, claiming that Damien's AI diagnostic software produced false results. The accusations were completely unfounded, but in the age of social media, lies spread faster than truth. Sienna watched as Damien threw himself into fighting back, working 18-hour days, surviving on coffee and determination. She saw the stress wearing on him, saw the dark circles under his eyes and the tension in his shoulders. "Let me help," she said one evening, when she arrived at his office with dinner to find him still at his desk at 9 p.m. "You have your own work," Damien said, though he pulled her onto his lap gratefully. "Your research is at a critical stage." "And you're at a critical stage," Sienna countered. "I can take a few days off. My team can handle things without me. But you need support, Damien. You need someone in your corner." Damien buried his face in her hair. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," Sienna said firmly. "You're the man I love. And love means showing up when things get hard, not just when they're easy." Damien pulled back to look at her. "You love me?" Sienna realized what she had said and felt her heart skip. They hadn't said those words yet, both perhaps afraid of the vulnerability they represented. But looking at him now, exhausted and fighting for everything he had built, she knew the words were true. "Yes," she said. "I love you, Damien. I'm in love with you." Damien's eyes filled with emotion. "I love you too," he said roughly. "God, Sienna, I love you so much. I was afraid to say it. Afraid it was too soon. Afraid you didn't feel the same." "I feel the same," Sienna assured him, and kissed him deeply, true to her word. Sienna took time off from the institute and devoted herself to supporting Damien through the crisis. She helped him organize his evidence, provided a scientific perspective on the accusations, and most importantly, made sure he ate properly and got at least a few hours of sleep each night. With Sienna by his side, Damien found the strength to fight back effectively. He held press conferences presenting irrefutable data, brought in independent experts to verify his software's accuracy, and slowly began to turn public opinion around. The battle took 3 exhausting weeks, but eventually the truth emerged. The rival company's accusations were proven false, and their own unethical practices were exposed in the process. Damien's reputation was not only restored but enhanced by how he had handled the crisis with integrity and transparency. The night it was finally over, Damien came home to find Sienna waiting for him. She had prepared his favorite meal, lit candles, and put on soft music. When he walked through the door, she went straight into his arms. "It's over," he said, holding her tight. "We won." "You won," Sienna corrected. "Because you refused to compromise your principles. I'm so proud of you." Damien pulled back to look at her. "I couldn't have done it without you. You kept me grounded, kept me human, reminded me why I was fighting. You were my strength, Sienna." They made love that night with an intensity born of relief and triumph and deepening love. It was passionate and tender, a celebration of survival and partnership, and the knowledge that they had faced a storm together and emerged stronger. As the months continued to pass, Sienna and Damien's relationship deepened in ways that surprised them both. They discovered they were perfectly matched, challenging each other intellectually while supporting each other emotionally. Damien began funding some of Sienna's research through his company, not as a favor, but because he genuinely believed in her work. Sienna used her scientific knowledge to consult on his AI projects, helping to refine algorithms and improve accuracy. They complemented each other, two brilliant minds that functioned even better together than apart. But more than that, they loved each other with a depth and commitment that felt unshakable. 6 months after their first meeting, Damien surprised Sienna with a weekend trip. He wouldn't tell her where they were going, just that she should pack for somewhere warm and romantic. They flew to a private island in the Caribbean, a place of white sand beaches and crystal clear water. The villa where they stayed was luxurious but intimate, with open walls that let in the ocean breeze and a private beach where they were completely alone. "This is paradise," Sienna said, standing on the beach at sunset, the water lapping at her feet. Damien came to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're my paradise," he said. "Wherever you are, that's where I want to be." Sienna turned in his arms, touched by the emotion in his voice. "Damien, what is this?" "This is me trying to create the perfect moment," he said. "Because I have something important to ask you." Sienna's heart began to race as Damien took her hands in his. The setting sun cast golden light across the water, painting everything in warm hues. "Sienna Brooks," Damien said, "6 months ago, you walked into my life and changed everything. You made me believe in love again. You showed me that success means nothing without someone to share it with. You challenged me, supported me, loved me in ways I didn't know I needed." He dropped to one knee in the sand, and Sienna gasped, tears already flowing down her cheeks. "I don't want to spend another day without knowing you'll be by my side forever," Damien continued, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. "Will you marry me? Will you be my partner, my love, my wife?" He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught the fading sunlight and sparkled like the ocean. "Yes," Sienna said through her tears. "Yes, Damien, I'll marry you. 1,000 times yes." Damien slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted of salt water and tears and pure joy. Around them, the ocean continued its eternal rhythm, bearing witness to a love that had started with a glance across a crowded room and had grown into something powerful and enduring. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Damien lifted Sienna into his arms and spun her around. "You've made me the happiest man alive," he said, "and you've made me the happiest woman," Sienna replied. They spent the rest of the evening on that beach, watching the stars come out and talking about their future. They would have a small wedding, surrounded by the people who mattered most. They would continue their careers, supporting each other's dreams and ambitions. They would build a life together based on love, respect, partnership, and the kind of passion that doesn't fade, but grows deeper with time. As they walked back to the villa, hand in hand, Sienna looked down at the ring sparkling on her finger and marveled at how much her life had changed. She had thought she was content with her work, with her solitary dedication to science. But Damien had shown her that she could have both a fulfilling career and a love that set her soul on fire. That night, they made love under the stars, on a bed on the villa's terrace, where they could hear the ocean and feel the warm breeze on their skin. It was passionate and tender, a physical celebration of their commitment to each other. "I love you," Damien whispered against her skin. "Today, tomorrow, forever, forever," Sienna agreed, and knew with absolute certainty that she meant it. Their story was just beginning, but both Sienna and Damien understood that they had found something rare and precious. They had found a love that was both passionate and practical, romantic and real. They had found a partnership that made them both better, stronger, more complete. As they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, with the sound of the ocean as their lullaby and the promise of forever stretching before them, both felt a peace they had never known before. They had each been searching for something without quite knowing what it was, and in finding each other, they had found home. The forbidden dream had become beautiful reality, and neither would ever take it for granted.